Satele watched Theron go, hoping she hadn't done more harm than good. The meeting had been a constant battle between the logical part of her mind and the powerful feelings she had felt welling up inside her. She hadn't expected to be so profoundly affected merely from speaking with Theron. Even though he was her biological son, she barely knew him. He wasn't part of her life anymore, not in any real sense. And yet it had taken all her training to deny the emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. The Jedi restriction against family attachments made more sense to her now than ever. She couldn't even fathom how much harder it would have been to remain calm and focused if she had raised Theron herself. All of her feelings would have been magnified 1,000-fold, making it impossible not to respond to his anger with her own. Even now, several minutes after he was gone, she could still feel the effects of their confrontation. Her heart was beating far too rapidly in response to the adrenaline that had flooded her system. "There is no emotion. There is peace," she whispered, seeking solace in the same words Theron had thrown in her face. She had hoped that being raised by Nagani Zhou, her old master, would have prepared Theron to better understand and appreciate her fears about Jace. And it was possible he might still heed her warning. Satele suspected her son's anger was more a product of the emotional stress of confronting his mother than a response to her actual arguments. Once he calmed down, there was still a chance he would see her point. Or maybe he just has too much of his father in him, she thought. Maybe meeting Theron was a mistake. Maybe she had made things worse. Maybe she was wrong to speak with Theron behind his father's back. Because of their history, she tried to keep her relationship with Jace strictly professional. By focusing exclusively on their duties to the Republic, they avoided dredging up painful memories and feelings. But maybe denying their past wasn't always the answer. Maybe it was time to talk to Jace. Not as Grand Master to Supreme Commander, but as a man and woman who had once shared a deep and powerful love. Satele shook her head. She was restless and unsettled, unable to find a proper sense of calm and balance. She sensed long-denied memories creeping around the edges of her consciousness, awakened by Theron's presence. Instead of pushing them away, as she had so often done in the past, she closed her eyes and sat down cross-legged on the floor, opening herself to them. Painful as they were, she needed to accept and acknowledge their existence if she hoped to focus and still her racing thoughts. Jace's command tent was a buzz of activity, with soldiers rushing in and out, delivering status reports to the newly promoted general and relaying his orders to his troops. He was standing over a small table, looking over a map of the battlefield covered with red and blue markers indicating the respective position of enemy and allied troops. "General Malcolm," Satele said as she entered the tent and approached the table, "I need to speak with you alone." She could have waited until evening fell. Most nights, Jace still managed to slip away and see her in private, but what she had to say couldn't wait. So far, they had managed to keep their love and their 6-month affair secret. Approaching him in the open lacked discretion, but it wasn't unheard of for a Republic general and a Jedi Master to discuss strategy in private, so her request wasn't likely to raise any suspicions.
"You heard Master Shan,"
Jace barked.
"Clear out."
The soldiers in the tent, along with the half-dozen officers who served as his advisors in the field, moved with typical military precision and efficiency, emptying the tent in a matter of seconds.
"What is it, Satele?"
Jace asked, dropping the formal address he'd used in front of the others. She heard the worry and concern in his tone. She hadn't told him she was pregnant yet. She'd only sensed the days-old life growing inside her because of her powerful connection with the Force. It would be months before her body began to show any physical signs of her condition. Jace must have read something in her expression. After 6 months of sharing their most intimate moments, it was difficult to hide anything from each other. But Satele hadn't come to tell him about the pregnancy. Not yet. There was something else she had to deal with first. "I've heard you're sending troops up into the mountains to search for the Imperials who fled the battle." Jace nodded.
Some of them surrendered when we broke their ranks, but most of them are trying to make their way over to the spaceports near Galmatar so they can escape off-world.
Let them go, Satele said. You don't need to hunt them down like animals.
If they surrender to the patrols, we won't do them any harm.
They don't know that, Satele reminded him. They will fight out of fear for their lives, and your people will have no choice but to fight back. Call off the patrols and many lives will be spared.
I'm not going to let enemy soldiers get away and go back to the Empire just so we can face them in another battle on some other world, he protested.
How many of them will actually return to the Empire? Satele countered. Most of them will slink off to other worlds and disappear into civilian life.
I disagree, he said. And it's my decision, not yours.
This decision is guided by anger and hate, Satele warned him.
Of course it is,
Jace shouted.
You've seen what they're capable of. You've seen the death and horror they've unleashed on innocent worlds. We're supposed to hate them. They're the enemy.
There was a sudden silence, the fury of his words momentarily shocking them both into silence. Then Jace came around from behind his table and placed his hands on Satele's shoulders.
I'm sorry, Satele. I didn't mean that the way it sounded. But I can't do what you do. I can't just brush away all the pain the Empire has caused.
Revenge won't ease that pain, Jace.